There are three major mistakes I see when people are trying to plant great big onions, and I'm going to talk about it in this video. So if you have struggled with growing onions, knowing when to plant them, knowing how to plant them, knowing how to get those big, beautiful onions that you see at the grocery store, this is the video for you. I'm going to go through the three common mistakes that people make when they're planting their onions. I'm going to give you all the information so that you can plant great onions this spring. If you are new here, thank you so much for stopping by my channel. My name is Barbara. I live in Tennessee, and I'm in Zone 7B. And if you've been here before, thank you for continuing to come back, because I feel like I have the best YouTube community there is. So if you're new, like I said, please say hello in the comments. Let me know that you're new. Say what city, state, country you're coming in from, so I can give you a special hello and welcome back. And certainly, if you feel like this is the kind of content that you like to see, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Matter of fact, go ahead and hit it in faith that you're going to love this content. Hit it in faith that you're going to want to be a part of this community, because I guarantee you, you will enjoy it here. I've been doing gardening now. I cannot believe I'm saying this. This is going to be my 6th year gardening. But y'all, let me tell you, these hands had never been in dirt until we moved to Tennessee 6 years ago. I started my first garden right here in my backyard in April 2020. And since then, I have developed a love and a passion for not just growing food, but teaching other people how to grow food. Because when I was a new gardener, and I still feel new, but when I was a new gardener, I feel like I could not find the help that I needed that was going to walk me from step to step on how to have a garden. And that's what I strive to do on this channel, is to make it so simple, so easy, because I really believe that anybody can grow food. And I believe that everybody should grow food. So that's what this channel is all about. Not just gardening, but living a whole, simplistic, intentional life that you are taking matters into your own hands, and you are being sustainable as much as you can. So that means preserving your own food. That means growing enough food that can last you a year until you can grow that crop again. That means DIY. That means cooking from scratch. All the things related to homesteading we talk about on this channel, because wherever you want to be, wherever you want to fit in, I want you to have content that resonates with you and is going to help you to be a better gardener, a better mom, wife, husband, brother, whatever that may be, and whatever that looks like for you in this season of your life. Now, let's talk about onions, y'all. Now, if you're like me, if you spend any time in the kitchen at all, you are probably cooking with onions, unless you don't like onions or somebody in your family does not like onions. But if those two things are not the case, you are cooking with onions, which means either you're growing them or you're buying them. And I'm here to tell you, it's going to be far better to grow your own onions instead of buying them from the store. And I want to show you exactly how easy it is to do that. Okay, so first, let's start off with how you can grow onions. You can grow them in 3 different ways. And I think that those ways matter, especially if you're new. So number 1, you can grow onions from seed. And if you're going to grow onions from seed, you should have already started those onions back in December or January if you're going to grow from seed. I personally do not grow my onions from seed just because I like the other way better. But that is an option, is to grow it from seed. Number 2, you can buy onion sets. Those things look like a little bitty piece of an onion. I had onion sets the very first time I grew onions. I did not know what I was doing. I bought some from a local nursery, and I grew onion sets. But my onions were more like green onions and not bulbing onions. Now, again, I don't know if back then that was just my ignorance and I didn't know what I was doing, but I've also heard that if you get onion sets, a lot of times they're more green onions than bulbing onions if they're not the right variety, okay? But just know that you can grow from onions from seed. You can also grow from onion sets. The third way, and the way that I grow my onions, are through transplants. I buy my transplants online from Dixondale Farms. I have been using them for the last 5 years, and I have never, ever been disappointed. You can go on and choose the week that you want your onions to ship. They are always right on it. I always get more than what I bargained for. They sell them in bunches, and I think it's $16 a bunch for 60. But typically, I have 80 to 100 in my bunch. That's typically what happens. And I've been doing this again for 5 years and they have never, ever disappointed me. So because it's so easy for me and I've had great success, I just choose to grow my onions from transplants, and that's where I get the most success, okay? So first, figure out how you're gonna grow your onions. Again, if you're just seeing this video in March or later, the best thing to do is to get you some onion transplants, okay? You can get those from Dixondale Farms, or you can go to your local Home Depot, Tractor Supply, Lowe's. They are selling them as well. So let's talk about the 3 reasons or the 3 mistakes that I see most gardeners make when it comes to planting onions and why they feel like, oh, I can't plant onions. Oh, I'm not having a level of success. Number 1 is variety. So I talked about the types of onions that you could do in terms of sets, seeds, or transplants, but the variety matters. And so onions are designated into 3 different categories depending on your geography and really your latitude, okay? I don't want to get too technical, but let me just break it down into 3 main things. There are short day onions, there are long day onions, and there are intermediate day or day neutral onions, okay? You can go into the Dixondale Farms website and they have a map. And so all you have to do is find your place on the map and it's gonna tell you whether you should buy short day, long day, or intermediate. So that's one of the reasons why I like buying from Dixondale, because I can't get it wrong. I mean, I can, but if I just follow what they say and order what's specific for my area, then I'm going to have good onions. Versus when you go to a Home Depot or to a Lowe's, they may not, well, I know for a fact, they're not just selling onions for your geography, right? I have seen long day onions in my Home Depot, okay? For example, the Texas, I think it's Texas Sweet 1015 is a long day onion, if I'm not mistaken. It's either long day or short day. I think it's long day. They sell them in my Home Depot. Well, that's not the onion for me. My area in the state of Tennessee are for intermediate or day neutral onions. Now, you may be saying, well, what's short day, long day versus day neutral? It all boils down to the hours of day length, okay? Short day onions need 10 to 12 hours of day length in order to bulb. Intermediate needs 12 to 14 hours of day length in order to bulb, and then so forth and so on. And so if you have the wrong variety, so for example, if I try to plant a long day onion that needs 14 to 16 hours of day length, then I'm in an area where it does not have that much day length, which means they're not going to bulb properly. That is why it's important. That's why you just can't pick and choose what you get. You have to know the right variety for where you live. So that's a mistake. Number 1 is that many people, if they decide to grow onions, they may not be getting them from a reputable online source, or they're not paying attention, or they're just grabbing them from Home Depot, the Bonnie's box, and whatever, and they're just grabbing whatever they see. So mistake number 1 is make sure that you have the right variety. And so I will put a link in the first comment of where you can go look at the map to see what type of onions you need to get, even if you decide not to get them from Dixondale, okay? So know the right variety. The second mistake that I see people make is that they plant the onions too deep. Okay, so specifically when we're talking about transplants, now if you grow your onion from seed, it is going to become a transplant. Okay, so let me show you what a transplant looks like, and let me demonstrate for you how deep you're supposed to plant the transplant versus what some people do. Okay, so this is what an onion transplant looks like. You can see it looks like a very, very small, thin bulb of an onion. That is what a transplant looks like. So this is what we're going to plant. If I were to grow from seed, this is what it would look like eventually and when it's time to plant. Now that's going to take a couple of months. So that's why if you're doing it from seed, you should have already started and you should be putting your transplants out now. But I buy my transplants. So when it comes to the depth, you should only plant it about 1 inch deep. That means till about right here. So let me see if I can demonstrate in the soil. Okay, so I've made my hole. I'm putting it in right there. And so I'm only going to plant it, I would say, 3/4 to 1 inch. So about right there. What a lot of people do is they'll plant it all the way up here. But I'm only going to plant like that little bitty tip part. And then I'm just putting the dirt around it and voila, it's planted. You can still see that a lot of the tip is showing, a lot of the bulb, excuse me, the stem is showing. And so you want to make sure that you're not planting it too deep. Otherwise, it is not going to bulb properly. Many people will plant way too deep. And so when you plant that deep, it doesn't give the onion a chance to bulb up. Only that 3/4 of an inch to an inch below the surface and put it into soil. So that's exactly how deep you want to plant it. The third mistake that I see people doing is that they plant the onions too close together. Okay, so for me, my rule of thumb is I plant them about 6 inches apart, which is not a ton, but a lot of people will plant them closer together, like 2 to 4. If you do 2 to 4, it's not going to bulb and become a big bulbing onion. If you do 2 inches apart, it's going to be more like green onions or what they call spring onions. If you do about 4 inches apart, it's going to have a very small bulb. But if you want a big round bulb, at least 6 inches apart. And what many people do is they put them way too close together. And therefore, they don't have the right size onions. So those are the top 3 mistakes that I see people doing. Number 1, the variety is wrong. Number 2, they plant too deep. And then number 3, they plant them too close together. So you want to aim to plant them about 6 to 8 inches apart, with 6 being the minimum spacing. Okay. The other thing that I will give you as a bonus, when it comes to onions, they require nitrogen and phosphorus. So you want to lead with a fertilizer that is high in nitrogen. And also you need something for phosphorus for root development. If you are buying your onions from Dixondale Farms, they have a special onion fertilizer that is a 10-20-10. So it's 10 in nitrogen, 20 in phosphorus, and 10 in potassium. That's what those 3 numbers mean. And I have done that every year. This particular year, I did not buy any. And so what I did was, before I planted my onions, I put in feather meal in my beds. Feather meal is a high form of nitrogen, but it's slow release, okay? And so you want to use some form of a nitrogen. So you can use blood meal, you can use feather meal, you can use alfalfa meal, you can use chicken manure, things like that that's going to be high in nitrogen. But you want to make sure that you amend your beds. Don't just put your onions in a bed that has no fertilizer in it. It needs to have something that is rich in nitrogen before you plant your onions. Now, as time goes on, and let's say your onions are getting to the point where it's time for them to bulb up, then you can add in and layer in something that is rich in phosphorus, okay? So that could be rock phosphate and things like that, or bone meal. Something like that that's high in phosphorus. Phosphorus is responsible for helping the roots to develop. That's with any plant, not just onions. It is specifically designed for root development. So those are the 2 nutrients that you need to make sure that you have, is nitrogen and phosphorus when planting your onions. The other thing is onions love water. So a lot of times you're not getting the onion size that you need because you are under watering. You need to make sure that they have enough water. And then the last thing, I told you only 3, but I'm giving you 6, is making sure that when you know the variety that you're planting, know the days to maturity. So what I'm planting this year are all candy onions. They have 100-day maturity, and it's right on it. So I just know when I plant mine, I count 100 days out, and I know that's when I can start expecting my harvest. Now, obviously, the onion will give you signs that it's ready to be harvested, but you got to know what are the days to maturity, okay? So those are the common mistakes that I see people make when they're doing their onions. The wrong variety, the wrong depth, they're too close together, they're not fertilizing, and they're not watering. Those are the top 5 things that I see when it comes to onions. I guarantee you, if you fix those 5 things, you will have a better onion harvest than you've ever had. Now, what I want to know is, what are your questions? Tell me in the comments, what are your stories about onions? Have you done it before? Have you had success? Let me know in the comments. Now, let's talk about what I'm going to do this year when it comes to my onions. So this year, I did something different when it came to my onions. I only ordered 1 variety, and that is candy onions. Now, I've done candy onions every single year that I have been growing onions for the past 5 years. But I usually will add in another variety. And so last year I tried, I think, the Texas Super Sweet, and the year before that, I can't remember which one that I tried. But one thing that has been consistent is that the candy onion performs the best for me. So this year, I did not even want to bother with trying to try a new variety. I just simply went with what I know works, which are the candy onions. So that's going to be different. Also, this year, I am planting in pretty much the same spaces that I planted in last year. So behind my house, I have 5 raised beds. And so I'm going to plant 2 beds full of onions. And then in my outside garden, I have 2 beds that I'm going to plant for onions. That's the exact same thing I did last year, although it may be different beds. One thing I've never done or tried is a white onion. I always do the yellow onions, and I don't ever buy white onions from the store, so I guess that's why I've never tried to grow it. Let me know in the comments if you eat white onions and buy white onions in the store, and if you've grown them, or do you only do the yellow onions? I also am growing a red candy onion this year. I've done that every year past, but usually my ratio is like a 4-to-1. So I bought, I think, 4 bunches of the yellow onions, and then I bought 1 bunch of the red onions. I just don't use red onions a ton. I use them in my salsa during the summer to make fresh salsa. Potato salad, I like them, a particular red onion, and then hamburgers and things like that. But other than that, I don't use them. Now, obviously, I know that you can use them interchangeably, but I never really buy as many red onions from the store as I do yellow onions. So therefore, I grow more yellow onions. Now, here is the second bed behind my house that I'm planting with onions. Like I said, I have 5 raised beds behind my house, and 2 I'm planting with onions. The other 3 are already filled with garlic that we planted in the fall. And so pretty much the onions and the garlic will come and harvest around the same time, which is the first part of June. And so I'll literally have these 5 beds open by middle June. And so I'll always have to plan for that, because by the middle of June, my other gardens in the greenhouse and in the outside area will have already been planted about 6 weeks at that point. And so one of the things I try to do is to do a round of succession planting later in the season of seed starting, so that I can have plants ready to go for this space. That's always my hope and my dream, but it never really happens. I usually have to go buy transplants for this area. But this week, I got my onions done in these 2 areas, but it took a couple of days just because there was rain in and out, intermittent. So I would find myself coming out, 20 minutes at a time and planting a couple of rows before the rain poured down, and then going back in the house. And so it took me a couple of days, but I got it done, at least the part in the back of my house. So I have both beds of my onions in the backyard planted out here. So last year I did about 400 onions, and I think this year I'm probably going to do around the same. And so in each bed that I have back here, both of these beds are 4x8. I have 5 rows of onions and about 14 onions in each row. So 14 times 10, that's like 140 onions roughly that I've already planted back here. And I still have a handful. Well, I really got a ton left. And so the next place I'm going to plant my onions are in my outside garden. I have some metal raised beds down there, and I'm going to plant onions down there as well, just like I did last year. So I'll probably do 2 to 3 raised beds of onions there. I've also planted some in my GREENSTALK as well. We're going to try that yet again. And then whatever else I have left, I have some also that I'm going to intersperse with my beds of carrots as well as potatoes. So that's the plan for my onions. You guys have seen me plant onions before, so I at least got 2 beds done over the last 24 hours. And so hopefully I will get the rest of my onions planted in the next couple of days. But I hope that this video showed you that onions can be easy. It can be simple. So hopefully those tips that I gave you help enlighten about where you're going wrong and what you need to do. Talk to me in the comments and let me know which tip was the most useful for you. And remember, if you have any questions, put them down below. If you have not subscribed to the channel, what are you waiting on? Go ahead and subscribe and be a part of this community. I have so much upcoming content around gardening and homesteading that I know that you're going to love. And y'all, we only like 5 weeks away, 5.5 in my zone, from the summer garden season. You want, look, you don't want to miss it. You do not want to miss it. So be here. Okay. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. Remember, this is all a journey, but let's do it together. I'll see you next time, friend.